is string one. One. Do you have the link somewhere?
I'll have it shortly. Yeah, I'll go ahead and post the link and get her. You can get it from there.
You have your luggage done, Rachel? You're mute.
Sorry, I didn't hear what she said.
You have your luggage done for tomorrow.
No. Are you kidding?
All right.
We are live, right?
Yep, we are live.
Okay.
Take it away, Anton.
Okay, so end of the 1902.
Mm-hmm.
No, 1902, no. 1902?
Yeah.
1902, that's 2.
Or
No.
wait.
1909, that's 2.
There we go.
Too early in the morning. So,
I can't hear you.
well,
Okay, sorry, I cut Anton off. I didn't realize he was going through my microphone.
Okay, so now we have to get it closer. Okay, so some cool things that we've done. I have David finally figured out all the. I'm going to actually sit here. David finally figured out what was going on with the survey with the worker, right? And now things are looking okay in terms of memory and CPU. Is that correct? You're mute also, David.
Yep, David solved all the issues.
Okay. And yesterday you were working on deploying everything from the pipeline with Sab and David?
Yep,
David.
that is working. Yeah, the only concern I have right now is the performance of the create job.
Mhm.
That sometimes it takes more than 100 seconds, and it's like, yeah, it's like too much.
And this is just for the worker, or is this?
No, not the worker. It's the create job. So it's a very easy task that usually in local on my machine it takes a second or less, and in staging with the consumption plan it takes like at least 5 seconds. And sometimes if you are launching a lot of URLs at the same time, it can take like 100 seconds or more.
Yeah.
So that's something really bad.
Yeah, we'll have. Now, I saw you guys discussing that a little bit yesterday. Any insights onto where that time might be coming from?
Yeah, I think it's that when they wake up another instance or something that it takes that long.
Yeah, so like in the premium plan, they had an option to check always on, and that really sped things up. Like it was always instant, but I think the consumption plan kind of goes to sleep like after 10 minutes or something like that. So especially if you like rapid fire queries and they're like cycling resources, I think that's when the time is taking, because the function itself is all it's doing is taking an URL, splitting it up, putting those requests in the database, and then sending the messages off. And like David said, if we use the same settings from locally, even though we're connecting to the service bus in the database, that's instant. So those are not causing any delay, and there's no more logic than that. So like we figured that it must be the message relay and things warming up that's causing the issue, because we haven't changed the logic after we switched from the premium plan to the consumption plan. It's the same. So that was our guess. I mean, we could go further and kind of put logging with timestamps inside the functions to like absolutely make sure that it's not the logic within, but like from what we have seen, like there's nothing that makes us believe that it's the logic that's causing the delay.
So it's the amino app doesn't mean that it has to get the Docker image from somewhere and then turn it on and then execute.
No, but this
is just the old function. Like these are just like the.
This doesn't involve the worker at all.
Yeah.
It's not the worker.
No, the worker doesn't have any problem for now. So it's just when you create a new job, you don't use the worker. You just connect to the database, create a new object, and send the message to the queue.
Okay. So okay, I know the problem is called the start.
Yeah.
So I mean, we can look a bit more into that during the next sprint.
Yeah, and it could just be that it got deployed in like a heavily used like shared resource this time. Like maybe if we just redeploy, it'll be good because like we have like the sync function to that appears to be fine, right? And that's on a consumption plan too.
Yeah, yeah, and that doesn't seem like the type of warm up I'd expect for the simpler functions we have because we don't have a lot of dependencies on those either, right?
Yeah, it's literally taking
modules
text and splitting it out. Like that's it.
Yeah, so something's weird there.
That does match my experience though with running functions and not having always on turned on.
Okay.
But I don't think they allow that in consumption. That's the only sad part.
And we can try with the other plan and see and compare the numbers and if we have the same problem or not.
I mean, we did already have it hosted in the other plan, and we didn't have that issue, right? It was always instant. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were hoping we'd be able to use consumption because then that's truly the serverless setup. But
yeah,
but if it's gonna, yeah, I mean, if it's not like you said though, we should try to talk to somebody before
going to premium.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like
it's
not well mentioned, but like I feel like consumption works best for like timed triggers things like like the thing that sends emails and stuff like that, which can kind of take in a little bit of delay. For something like webhooks, like this is essentially like accepting an API call. I feel like consumption is maybe too direct of a performance hit for it to be. So we can probably move one of two of those out to premium and then leave the rest in consumption because the sync guy can probably, or the status one can probably be there because it's just periodically reporting status, right? So we can probably do like half and half or something like that.
Okay. Going to create an issue for that for next sprint. Want to get going?
I'm not sure, although you're the one sharing your screen there.
Yeah, but I mean, I created, but if you want to catch up on other things we've done or.
Oh, sure. So I think the big thing really to touch base on is that the announcement of V1 for the browser extension. I don't know, Rachel, if you want to kind of share with everyone kind of where we're at with that and what the plans are.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now we have V1 of the browser extension deployed to all of the storefronts. We had some issue with the Edge store, but I think that has been resolved. Is that true?
Yeah, we updated again this week to try and got a response. Have you been able to check that on your machine? Because I know yours was one of the ones that had the out-of-date version.
Yep, I believe, and I'll check after this meeting, but I believe that I got updated to 1.0.0, but not 1.0.1. So I'll take that as an I'll take that as an action item. But the good news is that at minimum we have a 1.0 in the Edge store, so that's good. But we can get on Chrome and Firefox stores as well.
The other good news is 1.0.1 was mostly a fix for Firefox. So, I mean, we did change the shared code, but the issue that we were fixing didn't affect Chromium browsers. So 1.0.0 will be just fine.
Yeah, so that's where we are on the browser extension. And then we're pretty excited. We have a blog post lined up to announce that shortly. And then, of course, we'll be talking about WebHint at ViewSource next week. So it's all really good timing to kind of get the word out and share all of the awesome stuff that's in V1.
Cool. Yeah, and I was talking with Rachel this morning. While I've been in town, I've been having the opportunity to demo V1 to some people and see people run it against their own content and how kind of sort of mini informal user study to see how people are interacting with the extension. And I think there's been some good learning there. I think it's something we'll want to, as we were discussing this morning, continue perhaps in a slightly more formal sense. Because it's very interesting when you see how someone reacts to the feedback on their own content that they own, and what it starts giving you good insight to what's important to someone and what's perhaps not as important, and how we can tweak our presentation and filtering of the feedback to be more impactful and useful. Speaking to 1.0.1, so the fix that we did earlier this week for Firefox was that we found a workaround to the bug that was preventing us from analyzing pages that had content security policy enabled, that we were blocking inline or eval scripts. Normally that restriction is not supposed to apply to extensions, and that's how it's spec'd, but the bug's been active in Firefox for a couple of years. However, we found an alternative API available to DevTools extensions, which we are, that basically routes through an eval mechanism that's shared with console eval statements that you'd use from like the DevTools console. And so that isn't subject to the same restrictions. It means there's a bit more message passing between components on our side, but it gets the job done and we're able to analyze the page. So we don't have that limitation anymore. And that, I think, was a really important one. We wanted to try to get out of the way before a bunch of people are kicking the tires, because there's enough well-known sites that can and should have CSP settings on them.
Like GitHub?
Like GitHub. I think Twitter's another one. And so people kicking the tires on very public sites would kind of end up, if they were using the Firefox version of the extension, unable to complete a scan, and we'd probably get a little bit of a deluge of feedback, I'm sure.
So going back to the feedback of users, I've created the severity of hints issue. Well, it's going to be an epic for next one. So basically the idea with this change, which is going to be a break-in, is to and there are several hints that have different types of messages or different reports for the same hint, and some of those are more important than others. And right now, basically, we are just honoring what the user says in the configuration, but to help them focus on what's really important, we are going to decide, or the team is going to decide what should be an error, what should be a warning, what should be just FYI or a hint for you in case you have time, and then the user will be able to decide what's the verbose level that they want to receive and when they want to fail. And I think that's going to be very helpful for users to not feel overwhelmed when they receive all the feedback that we can give them, and that we are going to get more fixes now. So I'm actually very excited about this one. I know it's going to be challenging to agree on all of the error levels, but I think that we can get it probably done in the next 2 sprints. I mean, the technical part shouldn't be super complicated. It's more like the discussing with all the people what the right level should be for each message. But I'm pretty excited about this one.
Cool. Yeah, I agree. I'm excited too. And I'll be opening a couple issues later today based on some of the learnings and stuff that I've had this week from having people self-host the extension. I think there are a few other not too complicated things that we can do to kind of refine that experience. And I think the overall goal we're trying to reach is we're trying to get the most impactful feedback in front of people first, so that what you're most likely to care about, what you're most likely to act upon is what we're giving you first. So that's the first thing you can take care of. Anton, do you want to pull up kind of the rest of the individual items we've tackled for this sprint so there we can see if there's anything else we should be discussing? Well, I know the website. We should talk about the website.
Oh, yes, website. We got the website.
So we've got the new homepage went live a couple days ago. So the really the great thing that we have now is more mention of the VS Code extension and the browser extension, which were not part of the homepage before. So you can see we got some cute new illustrations as well. I'm so excited about those. But yeah, we sort of like put this out as sort of a user journey of like starting with webhint throughout your dev cycle from, sort of development to debugging and then, eventually deploying. So I think that's a really nice way to tell a story about how the extensions, the VS Code and browser extensions work for you as well as the CLI at the end. So yeah, that's exciting. I don't know if there was anything else on the website.
Let's see, we also refactored a little bit toward the bottom, I think, of the homepage, didn't we?
Yep. This content was there before, but we kind of cleaned it up, like sort of streamlined it a little bit and clarified it a little bit. So.
Yeah, and then along the same lines, we now have in our table of contents the browser and VS Code extensions as well when you're in the documentation. I think that, I know, Rachel, you had already gone through and done updated content for the browser extension. I think that we'll probably end up wanting to do something similar for the VS Code extension in near sprint.
Yeah, let's add it.
Okay, so if we are going to add it for the VS Code extension, right? Now we have it.
Yeah, or are you going to open an issue?
There was an issue for that already.
Oh, there was. Great. Fantastic.
Was it assigned to me?
I think we hadn't moved it into the sprint.
Improve VS Code extension about docs. So backlog.
Yeah, perfect.
Sweet.
Okay. We did 2 or 3 releases this week.
Yeah, so there have been a number of releases. While the primary focus has been on improving the browser extension, there's been some hiccups related to the CLI and the VS Code extension that I think the biggest one was around Semver and the versions that how we were referencing some of the dependencies between packages, and kind of coming to a realization of how we were expecting those packages to be consumed. So we had structured things such that we didn't have to update the core hint package when a number, like an individual hint or an individual parser, had changes. But most consumers of our NPM packages, we would expect to only have hint as a direct dependency. And what that would mean is, when you do an NPM install, if it's your first install and we'd updated sub packages, you would get the latest of even those indirect dependencies. But if you were just updating, it doesn't necessarily look deep into your indirect dependencies and update them if the ones you already have are compatible with your direct dependencies. What that means is that even though we were shipping updated packages, people could still have stale versions and not realize it of individual hints. And so we refined our release and versioning process for the references between packages such that we're always doing at least a patch update on the core hint package when we update anything. And then to fix, we had an internal version check in our resource loader to check that individual resources were compatible with the version of hint. And that was we were always updating that to the current version, which could actually lead to a resource being flagged as incompatible when it would have been just fine with a slightly older version of hint. And so in the same vein, we updated those to use the correct Semver peer dependency of just being tied to the major version and not the full version number. So we'd take anything from the current major version, like 5.0.0 and up. And that was something that was specifically causing problems in the VS Code extension when we were updating the shared version of Webhint in some cases. So all of that's been deployed and updated and kind of sorted out. Anton and I had a good discussion on that earlier this week to kind of figure out what the right solution was. So.
Yep. It continues, Arian. And the other important thing that is not merged yet is the user actions for Puppeteer. Going back here. So basically a user can now tell the connector to what they want to execute before navigating to a target or after the target, which if you have a single page application is pretty cool because you navigate and then you can click here, type this and go to the state that you want to analyze and then kick off the Webhint analysis, which is, so I'm pretty excited. I think that this is going to unlock, we hope that this is going to unlock the team that is working on the Azure ADO extension, the DevOps extension, and yeah, I have to send them an email to let them know that this is almost ready to ship and see if that fits their expectations. So pretty excited about that. Hopefully David already review it. I think that you have to do it also too.
Yeah, I'll have some, I should have some time today. So.
Okay. I think that's pretty much for this.
And I guess on a related note, also, Anton, you published the Medium post about auth. That was not even, I think, on our board last time, but that was really cool to have that.
Yeah, the analyzing password authenticated websites. Yeah, it's been a long-standing blog.
Oh, yes, we also, just as a minor note, we did.
Oh yeah, compat hints in the online scanner.
Yeah, so, and that's recently been turned on everywhere else too, because I think mostly prior to this sprint, we had been in the position where we had kind of treated the compat hints as largely experimental and only had them in the browser extension. And I don't remember if it was specifically this sprint or the sprint prior that we added them to the default configurations.
Was
prior. Okay. And so that enabled them in the CLI and then the VS Code extension. But the online scanner needed an extra piece of work to get them turned on. I think that did lead to some updates or tweaks we had to do to the website to keep us passing. But other than that, it seems like things are online and working well.
Okay. So go for what's going to happen next sprint.
Yeah. Anything else from this sprint that anyone needed to discuss? Okay.
So there is the actions for Puppeteer that should probably land like today or maybe on Monday. So I'm going to leave it in this sprint for now. David, how are you doing with the extends one?
This task should be done. This is right now. The thing is that it's not in production, but this is enabled in serverless.
Okay.
Right now, so I think the only thing that was pending was how we want to show to the user the configuration.
Okay.
But I think that should be another issue.
Is this part of the PR?
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe we're going to move it to the QA process. And actually, I think I'm going to update both of these because today we have the demos and some other stuff. So wait to the next sprint.
Yeah. We're not going to be able to get as much done today. So I think it'll just bleed over into the start of the next sprint, and that's fine.
What is your PR? I don't see it.
Is the serverless project repo?
Oh, it's not. It's probably not in the repos, Anton.
Yeah.
We need to add it to the Zen Hub. workspace, or I don't know what it's called.
What's the
serverless
online scanner? That one.
It says it's connected.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we can figure that out later.
Yeah. So for this sprint, Rachel and I are going to be on Amsterdam next week. So I don't expect a lot of things to happen. And then improve contribute. Oh, this is something I want to do, which is improving the contribution. First experience, I did some tests yesterday. Best case scenario, it takes 15 minutes from cloning to being running hint on your machine when you want to contribute, like yarn install and then yarn build. Worst case scenario, at least on my machine, is like 30 minutes. I would like to have your numbers as well, just to have some point of comparison, but I think that we can probably reduce that time and just have like probably 1 minute more than yarn install. The idea I'm thinking right now is to all the TypeScript assets that are generated after build, to publish them automatically on each commit to master, and then download them automatically when you check out that specific. And if that commit exists, or the artifacts from that commit exist on our, where we place them, download them and override anything that you have, or just deploy them. So that should help. That should help us get us started like pretty fast. I did some tests. The zip file command is pretty easy. The only problem is, where are we going to store the data? That's the thing I'm struggling right now, because for ADO, we need a build number, and so that's a no-go. We can't reference by file name only. So I'm thinking that maybe GitHub releases and just have all the commits for a specific hint release in there. I don't know.
Okay.
Still need to figure that out, but I think that we should make this, especially since Hacktoberfest is starting next week, and we also have the Microsoft Inner Source Hackathon later this month as well. So we really need to make this happen sooner rather than later, I think.
I'll say, how many days do we have before Hacktoberfest starts?
Oh, well, it's 1st of October. So
okay, but it runs all month.
Yeah, it's all month.
Okay. So even if we don't get day one, it's still valuable to get this in as soon as we can.
Yeah, problem is that I can't probably do this on the flight because internet connections, but yeah, the idea is to have it, end of next week, I think.
Okay.
I'm coming back on Wednesday, Thursday, so depending on my jet lag. So yeah, this one, and then, at least for me, this one, and then I start with the severity changes.
Mm-hmm. And then one of the other big topics we were talking about is we want to be able to take the VS Code extension out of preview sometime in October. And so we have a number of tasks related to that that we would like to consider, getting done in the next couple of sprints, starting this sprint, maybe a little bit next sprint if we're targeting toward the end of the month. And yeah, so there's that issue we think we may have fixed, that Anton was just moving with the updates around Semver and package references. But we'll have to double check. There's still, let's see, and we shipped an update. Actually, so in the updates we just shipped this sprint, there was a minor tweak to the VS Code extension for when you do have a hint.rc file. So we use the presence of a hint.rc file to prompt you to install webhint to your project. Otherwise, we use a shared instance that we've installed in space reserved for the extension. And what was happening is, when we would prompt to install a shared, instance local to your project, we wouldn't load anything until you answered the question. But that prompt could get kind of auto hidden by VS Code in the notifications drawer. And so you might not answer it at all, and then it just looks like webhint's not working because we didn't load the shared instance. And so what we tweaked with the behavior is that when we display the prompt, we still go ahead and immediately load the shared instance so that we're still providing feedback on files. And then if you choose to install an instance to your project, we'll reload when that installation is done. That way you're not left with a period of not getting results and not having things look like they're working, even though just because you've decided to configure something. Going forward into the next sprint, I think, areas that are top of mind for me are any final pieces around transpiled languages we want to get looking at. I'm still wondering a lot about JSX, if we can manage to pull it off. I don't know if it's one we quite want to bring into this sprint, if we've got some other things we want to look at first.
And that's the toughest one. So if we do that, doing the rest would be easy. So
yeah,
do you want to bring it? And that's your task?
Yeah, let's bring it in. We can give it a shot. Yeah, speaking of, talking to people and, seeing people use the browser extension, and I did the demoed the VS Code extension a couple times against their own content. Lo and behold, one of the first people I talked to had a React project, of course, right? And so really excited about using the VS Code extension, loved the feedback they were using less in their project. And so we already had the transpilation support there. So getting the inline feedback on the CSS, and then nothing on their templates. And it was a TypeScript project as well. So we'd have to full on have TSX support in their case. But yeah, it just, any time is very clear right now. Any time in the VS Code extension, if we're hitting language that we don't have parsing support yet, it's just really unfortunate.
Okay. Okay, so that's probably going to take.
That's probably the sprint.
Yes, and you had some.
I have some ideas. I'm always hopeful that it will take less time, but I'm pessimistic when it comes to scheduling.
Yeah, there is separate the compat data into its own utils package.
We want to do that when we're ready to take on a breaking update. I don't know if this is the sprint we want to do breaking, or if you want to see where you are with your RFC for
we can put it
severity
at the end of the sprint, or someone can take the severity of hints while I'm out, because
yeah. Do you have that one pulled up or highlighted there? I'm just
Which one?
The compat into its own package. There you go. Because the other advantage here is, we've built up some nice query utilities against the MDN browser compat data. Right now, they're all part of our big utils package. So if someone else wants to reference it and take advantage of the same queries we've put together, you've got to take all of a dependency on all of our utilities. And there's an open issue on the browser compat data repo where there is interest in potentially separating this out, maybe even bringing it into the browser compat data repo itself at some point in the future. And so I think getting it moved out of our general purpose utilities and into something that not only for our own update purposes, but into something that's easier for projects outside of our own to consume is a net positive, because I think this is something projects other than just WebHint might want to utilize.
What's up? How are your next 2 weeks looking?
I only have 1 week left.
But yeah,
so yes, we don't have much time from Utsav either.
Okay.
Yeah, and
really helping with the serverless stuff.
Yeah, I think
serverless.
Finishing wrapping up there, and hopefully, do we think even if we have to go off consumption for now and put everything on app service, do we think we could get it deployed and be what we're running in production? Or is that still too tall an order?
It's working and kind of ready to handle stuff, so we can It's just that if we plan to do the integration testing that we were thinking about to auto deploy kind of thing, that would probably be a reach.
Okay.
But I mean, if that's not required, and if we want to kind of manually deploy.
Yeah, I think if it's still just a manual confirmation at the end before we go from staging to production, that would still be good. And David, what's your feeling?
Yeah, I think everything is almost ready. We just need to figure out what to do with the create job issue.
Yeah. Unless we want to try as a comparison, just like to kill two birds with one stone, kind of deploy it in production in like a premium plan, and then have it in staging in a consumption, so that would not only have us have that in production, but also give a comparison sort of in a working sense what the differences are. That would be fine too.
Yeah. I won't do anything with the online service next week.
Yeah.
In production.
Oh, right, because you're going to be right. That's right.
It's not only we are going to be in Amsterdam, but hopefully
we'll come
into the website.
Not a good idea.
So
let's not rush that then. That's a very good point.
But just make sure that what we have right now deployed is working. So David, I'm counting on you to make sure that all the containers are up and running and not hanging.
All right. So I think our goal instead then is to be ready to deploy to production sometime after next week, where either if David feels comfortable, we could take it sometime, later this month, maybe toward the end of the sprint. We want to wait till toward the end of the month or at our beginning of next month. We could do that as well.
We're starting October.
Yeah. No, sorry, I mean November.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm thinking of us as already in October, but I know we're not quite there yet.
Okay, so then for next sprint for the online surveys, we can investigate it and get into the pipelines.
Well, and so if we're feeling pretty good about everything else, since we're not quite ready to go to production, if you want to start on trying to put together the test validation, if everything else is lined up, then that'd be awesome. But I mean, if you've got plenty of tasks to fill up the week without that, then don't worry about it.
So this past sprint, I spent a decent amount of time kind of putting every other project that I had into like auto deployment and pipeline, so that anything that I was probably doing didn't have a bust factor. So all of that is taken care of. This week, John wants me to help Bogdan with the other data stuff, because he went on vacation and I'm going on vacation. So we had a few things to do, but he got back to me yesterday saying that let's catch up Monday. So maybe I'll have stuff Monday morning, or maybe I don't know. I can get back to you and say, hey, didn't really materialize, so I'm free this week. Let's do something. Or I'm kind of booked for this one last week. So I'll probably have more details Monday morning.
Sounds good. We'll figure it out then.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we have David can probably start maybe then. Do you have, David, anything that you want to work in particular or finish wrapping up other than the figuring out what to do with premium or consumption? Did we lose David?
Did we lose David?
Hello?
Oh, no, there you are. Okay.
My internet connection is not very stable. So, yeah, I mean, I need to try to figure out what to do with the create job. And after that, I mean, if we want to keep the same thing we have in the old scanner, we need to create the script to deploy everything that is needed, like create the Azure function, create the database, because now it's going to be Cosmos, and modify all those scripts. So, I mean, I can work on that, or if you have anything more important, I can work on it.
I think anything we need to do to wrap up the serverless, we want to do. We don't want to delay that any longer than we have to.
Yes. Okay.
So I missed that last part. Were we talking about like migrating the data?
No, well, also we need to migrate the data, but I was talking about right now in the old scanner, we have a script just in case someone want to reproduce. I mean, if someone want to deploy their own scanner, okay, we have a script to create everything on Azure. I mean, create all the machines, create Kubernetes, everything. So it would be like modify that script to create the functions, create the database in Cosmos DB instead of the MongoDB we have right now. Yeah, so it's a script that you run that script and they deploy everything on Azure.
Okay. So we don't have to kind of be tied to like pipelines and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So it's deploying everything, but without, I mean, but only the architecture, I mean, the structure, the machines and everything. Okay, it's not like we are deploying the workers or anything. That is another script, but we have one to deploy everything we need.
Yeah, and then we probably need like multiple of those eventually, right? We probably need one for AWS.
Yeah. Yeah. So right now we have one for Azure, but that one is obsolete right now with the serverless. So we need to modify that script and things like that. So.
Speaking of which, where were we standing on being able to do a test with AWS? Did we have?
I think that John gave it.
Okay.
I don't think he cares. Like we can just create an account and try it out.
Yeah, I think that John was okay with that. I mean, as long as we don't switch, just only use.
That's not what we're using for production. We just want to make sure it works.
Yeah, and then a note on. I kind of added that in the PR as well, but a note on the serverless
framework.
Yeah, framework is that the last I checked, we had some blockages because their Azure packages were like literally 1.5 years old. That's like a massively long time.
Yeah.
I created an issue, but looks like it's not gotten traction. So like the next thing we can do is like I can either just pull down and then update them and then send them a PR, or like Anton also said, or we could just fork it and use our own if they don't follow up on that. But looks like AWS moves really fast, but Azure hasn't seen much traction in their updates.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be a net benefit beyond our project if we can get them to take a PR.
Yep.
I definitely encourage that. But if they won't even take that, then I think
I mean, I think if it's like coming actually from Microsoft, I think they'll take the PR because it helps them too, right?
Do we want to consider moving any of these scripts to Terraform if we're going to be doing like multi-cloud architecture?
So I'm not familiar with
Terraform. Me neither.
I don't know what that.
You're gonna have to educate us.
Yeah.
Sure. I'll drop a link. But with Terraform templates, you can kind of. I don't know. Is the current deployment an ARM template for Azure?
Sorry, you cut out a little bit. What was that last bit?
I was asking, is the current deployment script, is that through an ARM template for Azure? Yeah. So the Terraform script would be like a replacement for the ARM template, except it would accept like multi-cloud. It's it's not specific to one cloud provider.
Okay, well, that sounds like kind of the direction we've been trying to move. So
actually, that may actually fully be able to replace like the serverless framework as well, and that's exactly what it's trying to do. But they are just making it simple, so they've encapsulated every like details like the ARM templates and all underneath, and then so it seems like it's a simple. This is a function, this is the trigger, and you can deploy it in AWS Lambda or function, but behind the scenes, they're doing the same thing. So if we don't mind the extra encapsulation of the templates themselves and we want to give the users the flexibility, I mean, that may be able to replace serverless too. So it'd be cool to try it out.
Okay.
In the end, we just want like the same thing, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, we should look into that.
Yep.
Cool. Thanks, Rachel. Anything else? I think that covers the
the task. I think that we have enough.
Oh, more than enough, but that's good. We don't want to be under schedule.
Right. And then we have the Hacktoberfest quick start that we need to fill with information.
Yeah, that probably should go in this sprint, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's in the backlog, but because it's going to span to sprints for the whole month, but yeah, probably.
We can always bump it forward if you want to just put it in the sprint.
Okay, sounds good. We can actually maybe change it as an epic, and then we can link all the. I don't know, but we can have issues that belong to different epics, right?
Right. No, everything has to have one epic. One epic and one epic only.
Okay. We can put it in here actually. Oh, okay, so it's in function for workers. Need to put this in there. David, this is done or done in the PR?
This is in the PR.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to move it for the next one and then.
Yeah, because there was already one that was investigating to create the Docker image.
Yeah, I closed the investigation one yesterday.
Yeah, so this one is the one in the PR.
Okay, and this is part of my PR as well. Yeah. You just need to make sure to put the right comments in the issue to close everything. And then we have the documentation for Circle CI and Travis CI. What we were talking yesterday is to just copy paste what we have in here and add it to the documentation. And then
we can have, if we get more help on the docs in the future, we can refine that. But we've got a good enough start here that we should not just let it sit in the issue. We should at least get it on the website, even if it's not perfect.
Rachel, do you think you can? Did you already review those to make sure that there weren't any like grammar errors or typos or things like that?
Nope, but I can do that. I think there was some confusion because I think when we had talked about these issues that we were going to have create the documentation was like one issue, and then the actual review and putting it into the website was going to be a different issue. And I think those separate issues were never created.
Yeah.
So just like the accounting of it got lost. So if we want to, I mean, we
had talks that we were going to have someone else outside of us helping with the documentation. So I think if I remember right, last sprint, we had discussed that we were just going to wait until they were involved and then put this on, have them help with that.
Yeah, why don't we assign this to me and I'll follow up with Stephanie to see whether we have some additional help with docs writers. And if we don't, then it'll probably be me.
Okay.
Seem fair?
Okay.
You're okay then?
Yep.
Something else that anyone wants to chat about, discuss?
I'm just excited for V1 of the browser extension.
Yes.
Next week's going to be fun, especially. I'll be eagerly awaiting word back from ViewSource as well.
We need to bring some stickers back from there. I hope that Kali is going to get them today.
Yeah, you're going to have to mail me some.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
When's the next time I'm going to see you? Probably in April?
No. I'm guessing it's going to be maybe late January.
Okay, so soon.
Well, that'll be around 3 months. I'm out here around every 3 months.
Yeah, but I mean,
yeah,
you don't have babies every 3 months. So.
Yeah, I'll be out all of December and most of November probably. But since I'll be back working in January, I figure I'll have a trip sometime in that time frame.
Okay. So get it slow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else?
So the task for the online scanner are done. I mean, did you create it? The one to modify the script and
Yeah, so I think script to create all the resources needed in cloud provider. So it has the link to Terraform, and then it's migrate data from current database to the new one once we switch to serverless, but at least have something that does it already. We can probably use the backup that we did nightly for that.
No, that's the pain. I mean, I think it's not that create a new backup, and that is not, it's not a problem.
Okay, yeah, I don't know, and just put it in there, just so we can track it, or at least have the script to do
Yeah,
it.
I mean, it's going to be like 10 more minutes or something like that. That is the time it takes to make the backup.
Okay, yeah, and I think that we have everything else. I mean, we have some pretty big tasks to do next sprint, and a lot of people traveling or going on vacation.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, well,
Thanks, everyone.
enjoy the rest of your Friday.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.